So as you guys probably know, over the holiday, 2 National Guardsmen were shot here in Washington, D.C., and one of them actually succumbed to their wounds. We are learning quite a bit about the suspected gunman, who was an Afghan national, who was apparently part of our CIA-backed death squads in Afghanistan before coming over and being granted refugee asylum status here in the U.S. So to dig into this background and what exactly the hell is going on with it, we have literally the perfect person, Seth Harp, who is an incredible investigative journalist and also the author of the also incredible book, The Fort Bragg Cartel, which we learned is being turned into a series by HBO. Seth, great to have you.
Good to see you, man.
Good to be with y'all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's put E2 up on the screen. This is some of your writing on Twitter about who this guy was. You say he was recruited at 15 to kill for the CIA, assigned to a death squad run by the top drug lord in Afghanistan, soul-destroyed, murdering innocents on behalf of a pedophile heroin cartel, then brought to live in the alienated hell world of late capitalist America with predictable results. Tell us what we know about him specifically and about the death squads that he was involved with.
Well, that statement that you just showed up there might sound hyperbolic, but unfortunately, those are all accurate statements of reality around this guy and who he was and what the zero units did in Afghanistan. Raman Walla Lakan, I'm sorry for pronouncing his name. He apparently was recruited at 15 to serve in what's called zero unit. Zero unit number 3 was the one apparently that he was assigned to, also known as the Kandahar Strike Force, which was headed by a U.S. ally, a warlord named Ahmad Wali Karzai, who the top drug lord in Afghanistan is a fair way to describe him. He ran, what's the zero units were basically U.S. proxy forces that operated at the direction of the CIA and the special forces in Afghanistan, and they primarily did what's called night raids, euphemistically known as night. They're more like assassination missions, and they were used extensively throughout the country to kill people that the U.S. intelligence suspected of being Taliban. Whether or not they actually were Taliban is quite a different matter. And the reference to pedophilia there is the fact that a lot of these proxy forces, proxy militias, in fact, practiced something called bacha bazi, which was a really despicable cultural practice where underage boys were trafficked and sold. All of this ugliness is stuff that went on in the criminal client state that the U.S. American national security objectives in Afghanistan, the Kandahar Strike Force that he served in was in the middle of all of it. There's more stuff to it than that as well. Land theft, all kinds of criminality. So it's really sad to see that stuff blowing back onto the United States.
Yeah, so let's put the next one, guys, up there on the screen. This is E3. This talks about his dark isolation. The community was raising concerns. Many of the people around him. Seth, I want to put my conspiracy hat on, and I'll just have you kind of steel man. The official narrative is that this is somebody who was exposed to CIA death squad for years. He was brought over to the United States, suffered mental isolation. At the same time, we've seen many cases of people come to the United States, they're in a dark, they're in a fragile case, they have this killer background. Is it outside the realm of possibility? I'm not saying there's evidence or anything, just based on your interpretation, your experience of covering this. I mean, is there any likelihood or possibility of being prodded or influenced by some organization or others around him? I think a lot of people are asking that question, considering his background.
I mean, it would be irresponsible of me to just speculate about that without evidence. I do hear what you're saying. You know, what it was the gusanos from Cuba of the 1960s, all the Cubans that were brought to Florida to train to try to overthrow Fidel Castro in the failed Bay of Pigs operation. Well, after that operation failed for years and years in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, those same veterans of the Bay of Pigs, they were used to carry out all sorts of off-the-books CIA and JSOC objectives. And all across Latin America, they did terrorism and drug trafficking at the behest of some of the shadiest actors in the American national security state. And so when you look at the idea that 10,000 of these the zero units, doing assassination missions for 10, 15 years, that they've all been repatriated to the US and are dependent on their CIA handlers for their immigration status, for their special immigrant visas.
Mm.
You kind of wonder, to what extent they're a malleable group of people that
Yeah.
used and directed for all kinds of nefarious ends. But I don't have any specific information about this killer's motives. Lakan Wall is his last name.
Yeah.
You have pointed out, put E4 up on the screen, that there was another one of these Afghan mercenaries who you said was brought to the U.S. after Kabul fell, shot a cop in Virginia. You say, listen to the incredible rant he delivers before he snaps and watch how smoothly he draws and racks his weapon. Obviously, a professional killer at his wit's end. And I believe, Seth, didn't he say something like, I should have worked for the Taliban? Yeah, I should have served with the fucking Taliban before he draws his weapon on the cops.
Yes, that video is very distressing and impressive. Hearing all the things that Afghan man says. He's another guy who apparently served in a zero unit or served with the special forces in the CIA. By the way, when we say these people served with the CIA, I should point out that these are substantially military operations. It's what they call sheep dipping, is where they say, okay, nominally the CIA is in charge of this mission, but we're going to attach like 30 JSOC guys or 30 Green Berets to this raid or whatever. And that way that they're exempt from a lot of the rules that normally apply to military operations
Mm.
in
Mm.
certain things, like lining people up against the wall and just shooting them, which is the sort of stuff that the zero units did. But in any event, this guy, Jamal Wali, apparently also served in the same sort of capacity. And in the video, which is really incredible, 8-minute long video, when he gets pulled over in Virginia, you can see the sort of frustrations that he faces coming to the United States. And
Mm.
it's hard not to sympathize with the guy because, imagine being an Afghan who only knows the world of death and drug dealing that characterized occupied Afghanistan, to come over to the United States and try to make a life in a place like suburban Virginia and try to figure out things like getting a job and car insurance. And like, he's complaining that he can't get a job, that he can't get disability, and that he can't get a driver's license because he doesn't have insurance, which is the reason why the cop pulled him over. And you can just see that the guy is really, completely at his wit's end. More police are arriving on the scene and the tension is building. And the guy is armed. For some reason, he appears to be wearing his sidearm and ammunition like externally on a belt,
Jeez.
which, that's legal in Texas. I don't know, Virginia.
Yeah.
But when he finally makes the decision that he's going to escalate and turn this into a confrontation with the cop, I mean, the way he draws his weapon and racks it so quickly and immediately is able to turn around and fire a couple of shots, like underhanded, across his body at the police officer standing at his window, so smoothly shows, just watching it, you can tell this is a guy who's been
Yep.
in fights probably. But there was a cop at his other window who just really quickly put him down. But it's another really disturbing example of violence blowing back or emanating from these guys that were brought to the
Yeah.
U.S. with
I mean,
certain
it's
zero.
about the clearest example of imperial blowback you could possibly imagine.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and
Very
I think
clearly.
one of the things that's been crazy about this, sorry, Seth, is that we're reading the news and it comes out CIA at age 15. Everyone's like, oh, he was CIA at age, and I'm like, hold on, say that again. Teenager working for a CIA death squad in Afghanistan, and we're just like all supposed to just accept that this is apparently normal. I mean, I didn't even know, based on your work and others later on, but at that time, nobody was going around telling the American people that this is exactly, what they're up to in Afghanistan. Combined, I think, with your book, what we're watching is an organized kind of effort for all of us to deal with, like you said in your book, about the blowback of what all these special operations, the mental toll and others, that this 20-year campaign, failed campaign, ultimately accomplished, and what it brought to our soil. That's the way I was looking at this.
Well, the idea that they would recruit 15 is perfectly consistent with the type of logic that the U.S. military and intelligence agencies bring to bear with these conflicts, because
Mhm.
they certainly won't hesitate to kill somebody who's 15. They treat that as a military age male.
Hmm.
So there's no internal inconsistency there. But back now, I think reflects the brutality and ruthlessness with which the United States waged war in Afghanistan for 20 years.
Kristi Noem was asked about the killer's background. This is E1, guys. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
Why did he do this? Why did he drive across the country and carry out this brazen attack in Washington?
Well, the investigation is still ongoing, and we're allowing our partnership with the FBI and DOJ to continue to reveal all of the sources of motivation. But we do believe this individual, when they came into the country, we know he was unvetted. He was brought into the country by the Biden administration through Operation Allies Welcome, and then maybe vetted after that, but not done well based on what the guidelines were put forward by President Biden. And now, since he's been here, we believe he could have been radicalized in his home community and in his home state. So as we continue to talk to his family and his contacts, more details will be revealed, and we'll release those when it's appropriate. But this is something that for these individuals, when they're brought into our country, it's a dangerous situation. If you don't know who they are, if they're coming from a country that's not stable and doesn't have a government that can help you vet them, that we shouldn't allow it.
And she indicates that he, quote, could have been radicalized in the United States, which, you know, I would say probably the radicalization came from being on the CIA death squad at the age of 15. But, you know, they have an interest in making it sound like a scary Islam thing versus a scary deep state CIA imperial blowback thing. And then obviously like her thing about he wasn't vetted. I mean, in the context of being part of the death squads and being brought here, et cetera, he was quote unquote vetted. They knew who this guy was. They knew what he was up to, and also worth clarifying that he was actually granted asylum under the Trump administration. So they want to make it a partisan thing. They want to make it a scary Islam thing because that serves their interest in using this for a more aggressive crackdown on immigration from all sorts of countries. Trump has been talking a lot about Somalians lately too.
Yeah, I don't know what they mean when they say vetted. Vetted for what? I mean, I guess for connections to the Taliban,
Right.
but it can't be for like terrorism or crime. I mean, the people that the U.S. worked with were the drug traffickers and the terrorists in Afghanistan.
Right.
So I don't know what kind of connections they're looking for or looking to rule out. But yes, like you said, Crystal, in any event, you know, participating in death squad activities when you're still a teenager, I think that's sufficient to radicalize anybody. You don't have to look too much farther for an explanation, even though, you know, the precise, perhaps mentally ill reasoning that led him, you know, to that street corner in Washington, D.C., we may never know. But it's not really necessary to grasp at the idea that he might have been, radicalized in a mosque in suburban Virginia? Yeah, I don't think so. I really doubt that radical Islam had anything to do with the shooter's motivation. I mean, that's why he was attacking National Guardsmen. It looks like he's lashing out at the people who shaped his life with military operations and brought him to the United States and basically set him up to fail in an alienated community where, you know, a person from Afghanistan just has little chance, especially if they're dealing with all the accumulated trauma of having participated in violence and having killed people and having seen innocent people killed and probably having friends killed as well. So, Kristi Noem's statements can safely be dismissed in that regard.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate you, your book, and everything. And the work you do is just so important. I remember the first time we had you on the show for that drug trafficking story from the very beginning. I was like, man, this guy, it's one of those where you just bring together so much information, which I think a lot of us knew, but you put the facts, the words, and some of the work behind it. So thank you. Thank you so much.
And the balls, by the way. Which we also appreciate and respect. Seth, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm a big fan of the show. I watch every day.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate that.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.